All right, my friends, welcome back to Frog Boy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I want to talk about these leaks that Moore's Law is Dead just came out with. Now, I pretty much had written him off and been like, whatever, dude, whatever. But you guys keep coming and telling me that I needed to watch his video, so I watched it. And that sounds pretty interesting. So let's take this at face value. Say the freaking 9070 XT really does come out and destroy the 5070 Ti and literally compete, you know, with 4080 super power. Okay, because that was a good card. Like, I really like that card. It was dang near just as good as my 7900 XTX. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but that was a damn good card. Now, if you get a 9070 XT that has the ray tracing power of a 4070 Ti or whatever, what was it, 4070 Ti, 4070 Ti Super or something, you get much better ray tracing with that card. Let's put it this way, the 4070 Super that I had, the ray tracing performance of that card, utilizing, you know, DLSS and all of that stuff, because obviously you weren't doing that. You're not using ray tracing with any card without using DLSS or some type of upscaler. The performance that you could get, that you could muster out of that 4070 Super at 1440p at 4K, it was, I mean, let's just say it was a playable experience most of the time. Like, you could get a playable experience. There were some games like Hogwarts Legacy that was absolutely just atrocious on the Nvidia side with ray tracing running on any of those cards. So it was just like, whatever. I personally don't really like to, like, oh yeah, get this card because of ray tracing. I still feel like ray tracing is kind of in an infancy thing. Like, obviously there's some games that come out, they use a combination of, you know, ray tracing, like hardware rate accelerated ray tracing, and then they also use like a software solution like Lumen or something in Unreal Engine 5. Those games actually tend to look okay, and they come out all right, and they don't have like this super massive hit to performance, you know, like Resident Evil 4. They got ray tracing in there, looks pretty decent. It adds to the overall image quality to an extent. I mean, obviously your reflections in the water look better, and it gets rid of like some of the ghosting and some of the shimmer or whatever when you're like turning the camera when you're in front of a body of water or something. So those things are nice. They do add to the overall. They add a subtle change to the overall visual quality that most people don't notice. Like, seriously, you don't notice unless you're looking for it. So there is that. But if you're getting rasterized power and ray tracing performance out of a 9070 XT that beats the 7900 XTX and gets close to that card in some games in rasterization power, and this thing comes out at a reasonable price, $500, $600, man, dude, Nvidia's closest card that's getting curb stomped by a 9070 XT is $750. So exactly what like Tom from Moore's Hardware is Dead said, yeah, dude, if AMD prices these cards like $600, $599, that is some good competition. And from what we all seen from Digital Foundry, from Hardware Unboxed with the FSR 4 performance of that, the way that was looking, dude, it gets rid of a lot of the problems that everybody complains about. And out of everything on FSR, the shimmer that I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys, really? Is this something that really matters? When you turn on like FSR 3.1 in quality mode, the image quality looks absolutely incredible. The only thing that gives it away is like the ghosting and stuff. Like, that's it. That's the only thing that gives it away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man. Like, we're really gonna cry about that? Like, if you play the same game on freaking console and you look at that, like I do base a lot of the stuff that I do off of console visuals. I do. I get that PC is like this completely different, you know, thing or whatever, but the alternative to PC is a console or a phone or something like that. So yeah, we're obviously getting this like significantly better experience, and everything I've seen on PC, when I'm looking at something at max settings, running it 100 frames a second with FSR or native or whatever, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I'm absolutely blown away because it's so beautiful. So I don't know what everybody's freaking out about. And then he talks about like what I said about FSR4 coming to 3000 series GPUs. Look, guys, it's gonna come. It's gonna come. Everybody keeps trying to say that RDNA 3 is not capable. It is. It is capable. How capable? We'll find out when it comes out. But yeah, the fact that AMD is still going to go out of their way to bring this out to the 7000 series cards, that's a bonus. That there is gonna, I swear that would be like the dumbest thing ever if they do not do that. That is gonna be so bad for AMD by not doing that. To just last generation, they were talking about how there's AI this and AI that in these GPUs. And then if they come out and they skip that with AI upscaling and stuff, that would be dumb. That would be very hard for them. I honestly do think that they should at least bring like PSSR to freaking the RDNA 2. If they were able to get this running on these AI cards, on these stacks, man, AMD would win so much mind share right there. Just the fact that they're willing to go back as far as they do and bring their products forward, that instills confidence in your product on a level that like a new cutting edge hardware just doesn't do. It does, like, don't get me wrong, like there's a reason why Nvidia has the market share. Their cards are absolutely incredible. They bring new features and like it's crazy, guys, when you get some of these new features. And I used to be the same. I'm still the same way. And I see them. Like right when I see them, it's like boom, it blows my mind and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I got to have that." But then my little froggy brain, you know, because it doesn't ever stop thinking, keeps thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And then I start to look at all the different scenarios and I'm like, "Okay, that's going to work really good on a 5090. How's it going to work on a 5080?" And then I start doing the numbers and running things in my head and I'm like, wait a minute, that is going to be a compromised experience. It's going to work, but it's going to be compromised. But then I look down the stack even further and I'm like, whoa, this is going to get really rough, really fast. And so then I start to like, I start to pick it apart and I start to pull it apart and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But then when I look at something like FSR4, clearly FSR4 is going to be able to run on RDNA 4 really well. RDNA 3 is going to be able to run it. Even RDNA 2, to some extent, would be able to run an AI algorithm. How good doesn't it doesn't even matter. I think that RDNA 2 could literally run RDNA or FSR4 as good as PlayStation 5 Pro runs PSSR. I think that's about what you would be looking at. I think that once you use it, I think your upscale performance and visual quality would literally be reminiscent of PlayStation 5. Unless you got like a 6950 XT or maybe the more cores that the GPU has on the AMD side, the better it's going to be able to run that AI algorithm. So all of RDNA 2, 3, and 4 obviously have at least some sort of AI. They can do AI. They're just not very good at it. It's just like with the ray tracing cores, obviously. Every CU has their own little ray tracing thing. So when I look at this and I take this into consideration, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a massive downgrade to go from 7900 XTX to 9070 XT. I think that it's more about like AMD. You know, that top card is always going to be better. It's going to have like the 384-bit bus, 224 gigs of VRAM. That card is still going to have a place for a while. Like for a while, that card is going to be very good. By the time that actually becomes a 1080p card, that might be a little while. That's going to be a while. I don't think it's, at least this generation. Once we get to the next generation of consoles and new ways of doing things and stuff, that's when I think you're going to start seeing like your 4080 Super, your 7900 XTX. That's when I start to see these cards kind of drop off. Right now, I feel like games are just going to continue to go in the way they're going, which is they pretty much I feel like they're pretty much capping out right now at what they're going to be able to do with this. Obviously, they could easily, you know, crank up the ray tracing stuff and completely cripple your card. But in terms of like visual quality and like some of this other stuff, I think that when you look at something like Unreal Engine 5 and you can get games running over 60 frames a second on 7900 XTX, 4080 Super, obviously the upscaling techniques are going to improve significantly, and FSR4 coming to RDNA 3 is only going to help improve that even more. You've got frame generation, you've got lossless scaling, you've got multi-frame generation. These cards are going to stay relevant a lot longer, I think. And I think AMD and Nvidia knows this. These cards are going to start staying more relevant longer because of these frame generation features. So when you look at that, obviously the higher the card tier, the better it's going to be able to perform those tasks. When I'm looking at, you know, using frame generation on the 7900 XTX, I'm cranking out enough frames to where it's a playable experience, and it's a pretty decent, like it's pretty convincing most of the time. Like you can tell, but it's pretty dang convincing most of the time. So it's like, okay, that looks really, really dang good. Now, in terms of like these cards coming out and like, you know, like with the Nvidia cards coming out and being like a literal freaking paper launch for the most part, I'm gonna try to get my 5080 as soon as I can. I need it, I want it as soon as possible. A 5080, I figure a 5080, then I'll be able to, you know, cover that in between 9070 XT, 7900 XTX, and kind of get a, you know, feel for it. I'm assuming the 5080 is gonna be a little bit better card. You know, I feel like it's gonna be a little bit better, so it should be fine. Like I should be able to, like, that should be my top end card, and I'll be like, yeah, that's awesome. But I should still have a good enough experience on the AMD GPUs that it's not gonna be something that I'm just gonna like all of a sudden move over and forget about AMD. It's going to be interesting though. Like I'm actually pretty stoked to try this stuff out and see how this is going to do, because I'm seeing, you know, like in some games, like obviously, like right now, Settle Corsa Evo is running better on Nvidia. I think it's like 20% better than 7900 XTX. But now that I'm playing it on the ultra wide monitor, I'm actually getting significantly better performance out of it. And I'm like, wow, this is looking pretty dang good. So there's a lot of factors when it comes to gaming, guys. And if you buy the right monitor, the right screen, the right resolution, all of that stuff, you can make these cards last significantly longer. If you're running any card on 4K, it's going to drop off pretty fast. Like that's just it, that every generation it's going to drop off. But if you go for 1440p, which is probably, like I've said a million times, this is like you're at the pinnacle of 1440p. Your entry level cards can do 1440p, and your top end cards are 1440p monsters. It's just enough to like these cards are I think these cards are literally just, I mean, they're 1440p cards, like all of them, and they're like monster 1440p cards. You put a 5090 on a 1440p monitor and you turn everything up, man, like you are doing good. You're doing good. You got to look at it like this. This is the way my brain thinks. Look, if you've got a 4090 and you have to use performance DLSS, which drops it to 1080p, then that means that card with all the features is a 1080p card, right? If you can get it to 1440p and use all those features and still have it, then we're talking. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, trust me, the 4090 is not a freaking 1080p card. That thing is going to be a 1440p monster for a long time. I don't think that card is ever going to hit. I don't think 7900 XTX, 4090, I don't think those cards are going to ever hit the 1080p cards. Like you'll be long, by the time those cards are outdated enough to be 1080p cards, let's just say that like visuals are going to have moved so far along and tech and everything is going to be so far down the road that like you'll be able to look back at these cards and still use them. I don't know if you'll be able to use like ray tracing features much for a long time, but you would definitely be able to run these rasterized at like 1440p for a long time. Like 1440p is the new 1080p. That's it. Like that is the new 1080p. So, all right, my friends, if you guys are liking this content, do not forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.